Beautiful souls, Sagittarius. This love tarot energy feels incredibly intense. Like somebody is finally realizing they can't keep running from a connection that's been living in their heart this whole time. This person may still be quiet right now, but their silence isn't empty. Behind it all, they think about you far more than you realize. Your smile, your warmth, that free-spirited energy you carry so naturally, the way you love them without trying to control them. And the question keeps following them. Why did they let fear, pride, and outside pressure create distance between them and the one person their heart never truly forgot? Something inside of them is changing now. And for the first time in a long time, they're starting to stop running from what they really feel. Sagittarius. Some connections enter our lives so quietly that at first, nobody realizes how deeply they're going to change us. But over time, they slowly start filling the smallest spaces in your mind, in your quietest moments, in the moments you try hardest to distract yourself. And that's exactly what this feels like. The energy of the lovers feels deeply emotional here, not loud, not overly dramatic on the surface. But there's this feeling that no matter how far these two people try to walk in different directions, they somehow keep turning back toward each other without even realizing it. This person once believed they could control everything, their emotions, the distance between you, how close they allowed someone to get to the real them. They may be the type of person who always needed freedom, space, someone who gets uncomfortable when emotions start feeling too deep or too consuming. And when this connection began growing stronger, it scared them. Not because Sagittarius did anything wrong, but because you made them feel too much. There were nights they drove around for hours, just trying to clear you out of their mind. The city lights still glowing outside the windows, music playing softly in the background. Their phone sitting face down on the passenger seat. But every time it buzzed, their hearts skipped for a second because somewhere in their mind they wondered, what if it's Sagittarius? And then they'd laugh it off like it didn't matter. But the truth is, it did. This is the kind of feeling that becomes louder the more someone tries to deny it in silence. The energy of the Knight of Wands feels like somebody who's been running for a long time. They thought staying busy would make the emotions fade. Meeting new people, throwing themselves into work, friends, plans, movement. But strangely, the more they kept moving, the more they realized there was still something inside them that never really moved at all. You. Sagittarius feels like an old song they haven't heard in months. But the second it randomly starts playing in a coffee shop or late at night on the radio, every emotion comes rushing back exactly the same. Some people enter your life and disappear quickly. But some people leave traces of themselves everywhere. In the soft yellow hallway lights late at night, in the emptiness after a long day. In the moment somebody picks up their phone, then quietly sets it back down because they don't know what to say. And they're starting to realize Sagittarius is that kind of person. The energy of judgment feels like an emotional awakening, not necessarily some huge dramatic moment. It feels more like somebody trying to live normally and suddenly realizing they don't truly feel connected to anything around them anymore. Not because their life is bad, but because their heart is missing an energy that once made everything feel more alive. Maybe in the past, they believed love was temporary, something that comes and goes, something that shouldn't affect personal freedom too deeply. But Sagittarius changed the way they see love. You never tried to control them. You never forced them to change. You never made them feel trapped. And somehow, that's exactly what confused them the most. Because for the first time, they met somebody who made them want to stay instead of run. There's something deeply peaceful about your energy. The kind of peace that makes somebody who's always been strong, guarded, and emotionally distant start feeling tired of constantly protecting themselves. They find themselves missing the smallest moments between you, the random conversations, the laughter that didn't need a reason, the short little messages. The way Sagittarius could somehow make a heavy day feel lighter. And maybe the hardest thing for them to face is realizing not everybody can reach the softer parts of them the way you did. Not everybody can make them feel afraid and safe enough to open up at the same time. That's why the more they try to move forward, the more it feels like they're circling around the same emotions again and again. Like their heart already knew the answer a long time ago, but their ego kept trying to hold the door shut. Lately, though, that door doesn't feel as closed as it used to. And maybe Sagittarius can feel it too. The energy between the two of you feels like it's shifting very slowly, very softly. But enough to make the silence between you feel a little less cold than before. And somewhere inside that silence, there's still someone thinking about you far more than they've ever admitted out loud. Lately, it feels like this person is getting tired of pretending everything is okay. Tired of conversations that never go deeper than the surface. Tired of places where they have to wear a different version of themselves. Tired of constantly smiling, blending into the crowd, while feeling emptier and emptier inside. The energy of the devil feels emotionally heavy here, not necessarily just a relationship. It feels more like a cycle they've been trapped in for far too long. Old habits, attachments that drain them, people who keep trying to pull them back into an older version of themselves. And strangely enough, the more they stay around those energies, the more they find themselves thinking about Sagittarius. Because you never made them feel trapped. You made them feel like they could finally be themselves. There are days they sit surrounded by people and still feel lonely. Voices everywhere. Their phone constantly lighting up. But mentally, they drift somewhere else completely. An old message. A late-night conversation between the two of you. A look you gave them that made them stay quiet longer than usual. Some memories are incredibly small, but somehow they stay with you the longest. And as people grow older, they slowly realize that not everything loud or exciting is actually happiness. This person is beginning to understand that now. The energy of the Eight of Cups feels like somebody standing between two worlds. One side feels familiar. The other side holds emotions they've been trying to avoid for a very long time. And what confuses them isn't that they don't know what their heart wants. It's that they do. And that's exactly what scares them. Maybe in the past they believed that if they kept moving forward, kept busy, kept their distance, eventually the feelings would fade the same way other connections did. But Sagittarius never felt like the others. You never made them feel like they had to earn love by pretending to be perfect. You never made them feel emotionally suffocated. You felt like a place where after so much chaos, they could finally let their heart rest. And maybe that's why the harder they try to forget you, the more they remember you. There are nights they come home very late. The city already quiet, their keys falling softly onto the table, a warm kitchen light still left on, but somehow the room feels colder than usual. And they just stand there for a while. No TV, no music. Just the sound of their phone buzzing for a second before going silent again. And in that tiny little moment, they realize what they truly miss isn't attention from other people. It's the feeling of peace they had around Sagittarius. The energy of death here doesn't feel frightening. It feels more like a quiet ending. An older version of themselves slowly no longer fits who they're becoming. The version that always ran from emotions, always chose freedom but still felt lonely, always pretended they didn't need anybody. Something inside them is softening now. They're starting to see more clearly the things that once kept them stuck. Relationships built only out of habit. People who only appeared when they needed something from them. Moments that looked fun on the outside, but still left them feeling empty afterward. And the clearer they see all of that, the more they understand why Sagittarius feels so different. You never tried to force them to stay. And somehow, you became the one person who made them want to stop running. It's a very difficult feeling to explain for someone who's spent most of their life relying on logic and constant movement. Because for the first time, they're starting to realize they don't actually want to run anymore. Not because somebody held on to them, but because their heart is slowly learning how to be honest with itself. And sometimes, the biggest changes don't arrive through loud endings or dramatic goodbyes. Sometimes they arrive in the quietest moments. A person sitting alone in silence, suddenly realizing the place they've wanted to return to all along was always another person. And the longer they spend away from Sagittarius, the more they begin to understand the true value of this connection. It's not the kind of missing that feels dramatic or overwhelming. It's quieter than that. The kind that slowly slips into ordinary moments, driving past a familiar place, accidentally hearing a song you once shared, seeing someone in a crowd with a smile that vaguely reminds them of you. The energy of the Six of Cups feels deeply nostalgic here. Memories between the two of you have started returning very softly, but still enough to make their hearts sink a little. There are nights they lie awake for hours watching city lights reflect across the ceiling through the window, their phone resting beside them, the screen lighting up every now and then, before fading dark again. They think of texting Sagittarius, and then they stop themselves, not because they don't want to, but because they're starting to realize these feelings are far more serious than they once believed. And when someone genuinely cares, they become afraid of ruining it. Maybe in the past, this person moved through love very casually, easy to fall in, easy to walk away, easy to create distance once emotions became too deep. But Sagittarius never felt like anyone else. You made them feel seen, not the version of themselves they show the world, but the real person underneath all the strength, distance, and emotional detachment. And maybe the scariest thing for someone who's spent their whole life running from emotions is meeting somebody who makes them want to be truly understood. The energy of the King of Cups feels very strong here. This person still hasn't fully spoken their truth. They're still trying to appear calm on the outside, still acting like they're okay. But underneath all that composure, there are emotions they're learning how to face for what feels like the first time. There are moments during busy workdays, voices constantly talking around them, their laptop full of work, and then their mind goes blank for just a few seconds. And Sagittarius suddenly appears in their thoughts like a habit they can't control anymore. And what frustrates them the most is realizing that the harder they try distracting themselves, the more they understand they never truly left this connection behind. You feel like the kind of person who changes the color of everything after you meet them. Not because Sagittarius tries to be special, but because your energy makes them feel lighter when they're allowed to simply be themselves. Maybe they've never actually told you that, but they miss the feeling of being around you deeply. They miss conversations that never felt forced. They miss feeling understood without having to explain every part of themselves. They miss the way Sagittarius somehow brought freedom and peace into their heart at the same time. And that's exactly what starts creating regret inside them. The energy of the Five of Cups feels very quiet emotionally, not explosive pain. More like somebody sitting alone, replaying everything they once had, wondering why they weren't emotionally mature enough to hold on to it when it mattered. Maybe they think about the moments Sagittarius opened up, and they stayed silent. The times you needed them, and they pulled away instead. The moments they pretended not to care, just to protect their pride. And now those memories return differently, because now they're finally looking at everything through their heart instead of through fear. And the more they reflect on the past, the more they realize not everybody loved them with the kind of sincerity Sagittarius did. Some people enter your life just to temporarily fill empty spaces, but some people inspire you to become a better version of yourself. And that's what Sagittarius unintentionally became for them. Not through pressure, not through control, just through your presence. Something inside this person is softening now. The walls that once felt impossible to break through don't feel nearly as strong as they used to. And while they continue trying to live normally day after day, their heart keeps becoming more honest about one thing. Maybe the person they missed the most this whole time was never actually the person they were trying to forget. And little by little, it started changing the way they see love altogether. It feels like in the past, this person always believed love would eventually take away their freedom, that the deeper they became attached, the easier it would be to lose themselves. So they learned how to keep everything at a safe distance, close enough not to feel lonely, but still far enough to leave whenever they needed to. And then Sagittarius entered their life in a completely different way. You never made them feel trapped. You never made them feel like they had to abandon who they truly were. If anything, being around you felt like breathing again. The energy of temperance feels incredibly peaceful here, not intense in the kind of way that burns bright and disappears overnight. It feels more like two energies slowly learning how to exist together after carrying so much internal chaos for so long. And this person is beginning to realize that mature love isn't about losing freedom. It's about finding someone who makes you want to stay, even when you still have the option to leave. And honestly, that realization surprises them more than anything. There are nights they stay awake for hours thinking about the future. Not huge life plans, not dramatic fantasies. Just simple little images. A kitchen glowing with soft yellow light. A long drive somewhere far away without feeling emotionally alone. Someone sitting beside them in silence, and somehow that silence still feeling full. And strangely enough, Sagittarius keeps appearing in almost every version of those thoughts. The energy of the Four of Wands feels like home. After years of chasing excitement, distractions, movement, after constantly searching for things that made them feel free, this person is starting to crave something much simpler now. Emotional stability. Not the boring kind. The kind that comes from knowing there's somebody who understands you, even during the quietest versions of yourself. Maybe Sagittarius never fully realized how healing your energy has been for them. You make them feel lighter when they're allowed to simply be themselves. No pressure to impress anybody. No need to act stronger than they really are. No need to hide the softer parts of themselves. And for somebody who spent most of their life wearing emotional armor around the world, that feeling is rare. The energy of the Ten of Pentacles feels very mature emotionally. This person is beginning to think beyond temporary feelings or passing attraction. They're thinking about building something lasting now. A life that feels shared. Connection where emotions no longer have to stay hidden. A kind of love that makes them want to grow instead of run. And honestly, even they seem surprised by how much they've been thinking about commitment lately. Because in the past, they were always the person who avoided anything too serious. But time away from Sagittarius has made them realize something very clearly. Not everybody leaves your heart feeling peaceful once the excitement fades away. A lot of people only bring temporary sparks. But Sagittarius leaves behind something much deeper than that. A sense of familiarity, comfort, emotional warmth that lingers long after the moment is gone. There are afternoons they're driving home through heavy traffic, the city lights turning on around them, car horns echoing everywhere. And somehow, all they can think about is an old conversation between the two of you. A simple sentence. The sound of Sagittarius laughing. One tiny little moment, somehow enough to make them smile to themselves without realizing it. And that's when they begin understanding something they can't ignore anymore. They don't want half-hearted connections anymore. They don't want relationships where people constantly guess each other's feelings. They don't want to feel lonely while sitting beside somebody. They don't want to use busyness to hide emotional emptiness anymore. Something inside them is growing up through all of this. And they're starting to understand that real love doesn't feel like losing freedom. It feels like finally no longer wanting to run. And through all these quiet emotional shifts happening inside them, Sagittarius still feels like the only person who brings their heart both peace and the desire to begin again. It feels like this person has been holding too much inside for far too long. The unsent words, the messages typed out, then deleted. Nights they picked up their phone in the middle of the night just to stare at Sagittarius's name on the screen, before quietly putting it back down again. But lately, that silence has started feeling too heavy to carry anymore. The energy of the Ace of Swords feels like truth finally wanting to be spoken. No more running. No more pretending this connection never mattered. Something inside them keeps pushing them toward honesty now. Not only with Sagittarius, but with themselves. Because the more distance they try to create, the more they realize their heart never truly left this connection behind. There are nights they sit alone in their car after a long day. The city almost asleep around them. Streetlights reflecting softly across the windows. And in that quiet little moment, they start thinking about everything they never said. That they miss you. That they tried to forget you and couldn't. That somehow Sagittarius still appears in almost everything around them. And honestly, the hardest part for them right now isn't the emotion itself. It's the regret. Regret for letting pride become bigger than the connection. Regret for staying silent too long. Regret for believing they would always have more time to come back later. The energy of the Page of Cups feels soft. Like somebody finally wanting to lower their defenses and say something real, even if they still don't fully know how. Maybe their first words won't come out perfectly. Maybe they'll stumble a little. Maybe they'll try to sound calm even while their heart feels completely overwhelmed underneath it all. But Sagittarius, this person truly wants you to know that there hasn't been a single day where you fully disappeared from their mind. Something deeply sincere is growing underneath all that fear now, and they don't want to keep losing you just because of silence anymore. And for someone who spent most of their life running, whenever emotions became too deep, that realization is huge. The energy of the Eight of Wands makes everything feel like it's finally beginning to move again. After such a long period of emotional stillness, it feels like their feelings can no longer stay buried forever. A conversation, a message, an unexpected confession. A moment where two people finally speak honestly to each other. It all feels very close now, not in an overly dramatic way. More like two people who wandered far away from each other emotionally, only to slowly find themselves returning to the exact conversation that should have happened a long time ago. And maybe Sagittarius can feel this energy changing too. The silence between you lately doesn't feel the same anymore. Not completely cold. Not like disappearing from each other's lives entirely. It feels more like somebody standing outside a door for a very long time, trying to gather enough courage to knock one more time. And maybe what weighs on them the most right now is wondering whether Sagittarius still has room in their heart for them. Because no matter how strong they try to appear, this person knows they hurt you through their avoidance. They know there were nights Sagittarius waited. Moments you needed answers and only received silence. Times you tried stepping closer while they pulled away out of fear of their own emotions. But sometimes people only understand the value of a connection after almost losing it. And that's exactly what they're sitting with right now. No more half-hearted emotions. No more old emotional games. No more pretending they don't need anybody. Just a heart slowly learning how to be honest. And maybe this conversation won't instantly fix everything. But it feels like a door finally opening after being locked shut for a very long time. And on the other side of that door are all the feelings they've been carrying about Sagittarius throughout this entire journey. And somewhere in the middle of all these unspoken emotions Maybe the most beautiful part of this story was never really about who was right, who was wrong, or even where everything eventually leads. Sometimes a connection enters our lives simply to wake the heart back up. After years of surviving through logic, distance, and emotional self-protection, to teach one person how to stop running, and teach another how to love without losing themselves in the process. Not every connection feels perfect from the beginning. Some people have to travel a very long emotional road before they finally understand what truly matters to them. And sometimes, the reason we never fully forget somebody isn't because of the big dramatic moments. It's the small sense of peace we felt beside them. Like the way a long night finally softens after the rain stops. Like driving through a familiar city and realizing your chest doesn't feel as empty anymore. Like remembering somebody in the middle of a crowded world and still feeling your heart slow down for a second. Maybe Sagittarius has known a connection like that too. Someone who made you stronger, but somehow softer at the same time. Someone you tried to walk away from, only to quietly carry in your heart much longer than expected. And maybe the most meaningful part of this journey was never about holding on to somebody forever. Maybe it was simply the moment two people finally became honest about what they truly felt. I've always believed the connections that reach the heart deeply tend to leave echoes behind for a very long time, even when life around us changes. And if this story happened to touch a memory somewhere inside you tonight, maybe that feeling is trying to say something gentle to your heart too. And if you enjoy these slower, deeper stories, these kinds of healing readings that sit with emotions instead of rushing through them, then maybe you'll want to stay here with me a little longer sometime. But for now, let everything settle slowly. Because sometimes people don't truly forget someone. They simply learn how to become quieter with the way they miss them.